Welcome back. The Marikana massacre that occurred on the 16th August 2012, where 34 mine workers were killed, is a blight on the modern history of South Africa. Mining has always played a major but difficult role in the development of South Africa. It has made individuals rich and has displaced entire communities and defined, to a large extent, the migratory labor system that we see today. The most recent case is that of the Kolobeni community against the government, where the courts ruled that mining could not take place there without further consultations. Relationships between the government, mining companies and workers have always been unsettled. Mining is dangerous, but it has never run short of labor. One of the prominent role players in mining is Mr. Joseph Mathunjwa, the president of AMCU, and he's here with me to talk mining and talk about his own journey in mining. Joe, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's start with the most recent story, the politics. There's always politics in mining. It's not just about labor issues. There's also the main point of economics. Earlier this week, the former Minister of Mineral Resources, Advocate Nwako Ramatlhodi, told of things that were happening within the sector, particularly given that he was appointed at the time where we had the most prolonged and protracted strike in the platinum sector. And he said he was busy stabilizing things and there was interference from elsewhere. But what was your own experience working with Advocate Nwako Ramatlhodi?
Yes, I mean, in his short span in the Department of Mineral Resources as a minister, he was very positive. I still remember when he was saying he's the minister of everyone. He doesn't have any political influence in terms of dealing with other stakeholders. And in our 5-month strike, he played a very important role because he summoned the CEOs of the companies to engage. Hence, there was a standoff as he was in the middle of the process. And then he was called to say he must just leave those processes and leave the union with the employers. He must intervene. And it was a blow because it protracted the strike itself, of which we were thinking by then we were coming closer with the CEO, because there was a government minister inside who likes to see the spin-off in terms of sustainability and also peace in the industry.
And what was your view when you saw this happen? Right. I mean, firstly, you seem to you were having certain expectations from him that he was going to help the whole strike matter to be resolved and the sector to be settled. So when he was pulled out, what view did you have? Because what he revealed at the Zondo Commission is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need a rock scientist to know or to understand why he was pulled out. It was a political decision. Because I still remember I was at Ulundi attending the funeral of one of our comrades, and he phoned me and said, please don't be surprised, there will be an announcement that have been put out. As you'll remember, by then there was a meeting or a conference or an EC meeting of the African National Congress at one of St. George's Hotel, and then it's where then he was called and told that he mustn't continue to intervene in the strike. That was a political decision.
And when he was removed?
I mean, it was removed, and then it was a blow because the standoff continued.
Yeah.
But we managed because our members were determined that they will never return back to work until they reach their 1,000 rand, of which indeed.
But now, talking about unions, people who are not role players in the sector view an organization such as AMCU, for instance, as always being involved in labor strikes. There's one that's currently underway. Just give me a background to how you have embarked on strike currently, and is it a correct view that the public may have about AMCU that it is the most radical and disruptive of unions?
Yeah, I think the public has been tamed somehow by monopoly capital to view the unions. If they fight the monopoly capital, they are viewed as reckless, insensitive in many forms. Like, for instance, this current Stillwater gold sector strike, we engaged with them. There were 4 unions, including us. That was NUM, Solidarity, UWASA, ourselves. NUM bowed out in the early stage to say this employee is not prepared to move. Let's take a certificate and go on strike. And we remained. And also, we went to CCMA, we have a certificate, but we prolonged, we pushed the engagement for another month. But Nicodemously, NUM went and concluded the agreement, of which we have pushed it to 700. So then Sibanye left us and go behind us and conclude the same effort that we put forward. So now we are on strike, 15,000 members of AMCU in the coal sector under Stillwater on strike. For the fact that the members of AMCU decided to go on strike towards the Christmas, it shows that the oppression and the racism in Sibanye and these draconian conditions of employment that they are facing, it cannot be postponed. No one can just decide to go on strike towards the festive season. But the festive season, Christmas, doesn't mean anything to them.
But how do you feel about this fact and the view? AMCU was there before the protracted strike that I spoke about in the platinum sector. Joseph Mathunjwa was there. And I spoke to you on several occasions at the time. And here we are again. And you're still pushing for so many things and rights of the members and the employees in the sector that people may think that the problem that AMCU has is the leadership, and is the leadership in the person of Joseph Mathunjwa. That everything else is fine in mining except for Joseph Mathunjwa.
Yeah, hence I said earlier on, people have been tamed. And, you know, if you keep on living under one condition, even how bad it is, you end up saying this is how things should be. So if we move outside the system, because you cannot change anything if you are within the system. So now people are surprised. You're in the democracy. The issue of strike should be the thing of the past. But the oppression and the exploitation of the workers is not a thing of the past. Even after 25 years in this democratic settlement, still workers are dying. The very same Sibanye Stillwater this year killed 23 breadwinners without any consequences. So the hyper salaries of these COOs, I mean, if you look at the inequality between the CEO and the lower earning of a mine worker, I mean, it's unbelievable. If we are saying South Africa is an unequal society, and then how do you close the gap from the CEO down to the RDO? The daily wage of the CEO, it's more than the annual salary of the RDO. How do you call that? It has to be fixed. One has to roll the sleeves and fix it.
But your personal experience with mining, I'm sure there are specific incidents that have made you adopt this posture when you deal with whatever issues that may arise within the sector. Are there personal experiences and instances that made you adopt this attitude that unless you adopt a much more aggressive stance against management, that not much will happen in the sector?
I mean, management is aggressive negatively towards the workers. And you remember after 1994, the issues of economy was never even debated or engaged. There was no indaba how to change the structure of the mine. The workers are still faced by the apartheid structure of the mine, of which the foundation of it was brutality at the best. So therefore, how can you continue with such a thing? So we are trying with as AMCU and our members to change the labor environment in order to benefit for our members. These minerals shouldn't be serving one person or a clique of people. These minerals belong to the South African.
Well, you know, the typical argument is that you're threatening stability and that investments will be pulled out and this will undermine the economy. And that's the understanding that a lot of people have about what's going on in mining.
No. We cannot pretend as if we are free economically and pretend to obey or to follow the processes of oppression. No, we will work against it. I mean, if I can quote the late revolutionary Sankara was saying, to change things, you need a little bit of madness. So we South Africa need a little bit of madness.
Oh, we have more than that now.
But on an objective way. In an objective way.
But you know, another matter that I have found odd. Well, not odd, but it's serious, but it's taking long to resolve. It's the Marikana massacre that occurred several years ago. One would have thought that by now, whatever outstanding issues would have been resolved, but it seems like the tensions are still bubbling there, that there are specific things that should happen. Well, people cannot forget, but to put the squabbling around the massacre away. Why is it taking this long to have some finality, some closure on this matter?
I think for the first time we've seen that the government under President Cyril Ramaphosa, they have concluded the compensation for the injured and arrested. They've been paid. And also there was a compensation to the widows. It shows that we are heading towards a right direction, even though that not everything has been settled, but we are heading
What were
the
the
direction.
stumbling blocks out of interest?
I mean, one would say it's a political posturing from the state. I mean, we've got power. We will delay as much as we can. So 6 years down the line, there was nothing happening. But now we can see the arrested and injured, they've been compensated. They've signed off. The money is in their account, of which I think the sitting president is going towards the right direction.
And when do you think, if there's any timeline or deadline of sorts, or by when do you think you would, as AMCU and leader in the union movement, you would say, well, I think we have now achieved a lot in terms of putting this matter to rest?
I mean, there are some demands that we put before the state to say the 16th of August it should be recognized as the South African Working Days, and then to put a monument around the area where the workers were killed. As AMCU, we are still committed building the houses in the Eastern Cape, Swaziland. We just finished one house in Swaziland. We finished 5 houses in Eastern Cape. We're still continuing. Those are commitment, and we are not helped by anyone. It's just through Good Samaritan who throw their monies in order to make up. But that project overall is more than 50 million project, because we are not building RDP houses. We are building a proper house, 3-bedroom, toilet inside, inside everything, shower, proper, that brings the dignity that those workers left their homestead seeking for better life, and they were faced with the R5s, which they cut their lives short. So we are trying to bring that dignity, to the families who are left behind.
Joseph Mathunjwa is one of the prominent, important labor leaders in the country, particularly in the mining sector. He's the president of AMCU. I will be continuing my conversation with him in a short while.